Welcome to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast with Ron and Kristin, where leadership meets entertainment. This podcast features stories with names and certain aspects that have been changed to keep submissions private. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast, where leadership meets entertainment. I'm Kristin, and I'm here with my hero, Ron Ward. Of course, he wrote that introduction for himself. Hey, you know what? I was pretty impressed with your high kicks on the pier when I was visiting. We'll have to put that video out there.
Oh, I forgot about that. We have that on video.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I have it. I don't know if I don't think I've sent it to you
Kristin,
yet. It's pretty fabulous.
This is not an insult. You're not like 6 foot though. So
I'm not.
I don't know if you should be that impressed.
Oh,
and I pulled a hamstring and was in the hospital for 2 days.
Oh my goodness. All right, Ron, I'm going to ask you the question that everyone seems to be asking me this time of year. Are you ready for Christmas?
Don't you love that everyone asks me that?
I know. I'm like, well.
What I believe they're saying, you correct me if I'm wrong, is have you bought all your gifts?
Yeah, pretty much.
I think that's pretty much what they're saying.
Right.
So I did something this year, and you know, there's a purpose to my madness. I ordered big Christmas bags, and you just basically throw gifts in there and just tie it up, and it looks great.
Oh, yeah.
Kristin, I'm sure if I went to college to wrap gifts, that after 4 to 5 years, I could do it. But there's something wrong with me. And you always knew if I wrapped something when it was under the tree.
That bad, huh?
It's pretty bad.
Oh my gosh.
And I would cut pieces to try to cover up the bare areas.
I did do that last night.
It just gets worse and worse. So anyway, it's going to look like I was ready, and you know, I prepared these nice Christmas bags.
Look at that.
I don't want to brag.
Tissue paper puffing out of them.
Now, I could ask you the same question, but since I have learned through this podcast and your social media that you're like a chef,
I try.
What unique are you going to cook for Christmas dinner?
Oh my goodness. Well, I am preparing beef Wellington for the second year in a row. So this is the great part. My dad, he loves a nice home cooked meal. He lives by himself, so he just wants someone else to cook for him. So he's buying this center cut beef tenderloin, 4 pounds of it. Of course, he's buying enough so I can make 2. But
so about $2,000. But go ahead.
It's very expensive. I know. And he gets it from a butcher right in Southwest Washington, out in the country. So so last year was my first year that I made it. I've always wanted to. I watched Gordon Ramsay's Christmas special. I don't know if you've seen that, but it's pretty fabulous. And I was really pumped up to make it. So, and I have this like blind confidence where I'm like, yeah, I can do that with pretty much any recipe I see. But I stressed, the whole process last year was on Christmas Eve, and I stressed my sister out so much, probably because I have an overly sensitive smoke detector that was going off nonstop. But that she is now hosting Christmas Eve at her house, and she's literally doing an Italian Christmas and throwing a lasagna in the oven. And she's alluded to the fact that she was stressed out by the process numerous times, but she won't be there at Christmas
I'm
night
excited getting this topic, but I got to know something. I've had beef Wellington at a few dinner party type things. I thought it was just beef, and then it's wrapped in some kind of flour and like, is that what's the outer? What's on the outside of that?
Well, that's a puff pastry on the outside. But what you do is you wrap that cut of meat, so the beef tenderloin, you wrap that in a prosciutto, which is like a very, very thinly sliced ham. Italian, you'll see it on charcuterie platters a lot. And then there's a mushroom mixture, button mushrooms. You have to dice them up really fine into a paste. So there's mushrooms wrapped on the outside of that. And then you do your puff pastry. And you have to be careful because it can, if you have too much moisture, then the puff pastry will separate from the meat, and then it won't be pretty.
Oh my God, this sounds great. You heard it here, folks.
Oh yeah, I'm putting together the sides now, but yeah, I have to press myself every year to do more and more. Kind of like in leadership.
Yeah,
I'm not going to do the same old crap every year.
Good stuff. I'm sure you'll post a picture of it.
Oh, I will. You got it.
All right. As many of you know, my company, Forward Operations, is a sponsor for this podcast, and we stay on the cutting edge of brain functionality, psychology, science, and AI.
Mm-hmm.
And Chris and I try to convey a lot of that information on the podcast. We do our own research. But there's been some recent breakthroughs because of AI's ability to study the brain. We've learned so much about the brain. So what we wanted to do is have conversation matching during the holidays. And we're going to explain to you what that is. And it's going to make your holidays so much better. You've already got the good food. You just need to learn to deal with old, cranky Uncle Harry.
A nice choice of name.
You'll be in good shape.
Everyone has one.
So let's talk a little bit about conversation matching. And it's broader than just the conversation. And we'll explain that as we go. But it will allow you to have a deeper connection. You're going to be understood, valued more, and vice versa. You will be able to value and understand others. It reduces that awkwardness. Have you ever just been around someone, Kristin, that you just have trouble just having a conversation with?
Oh, yeah. Even my own dad. He talks about himself a lot. That I've made him aware of that. But that one can be tough for me because I don't want to be a jerk. But yikes.
No, and I love my dad dearly, but I know more about the volunteer fire department and 3 of his friends than he knows about my whole career. I mean, it's true.
Yes.
So there is this awkwardness to some people. And I teach a technique, Kristin, called threading. And what you do in threading is you learn to ask more open-ended questions to get more information. So if I said, where are you from? If you said Portland, that doesn't tell me much.
Right.
So I'm going to be going, what do you like about Portland? And I'm going to be threading your personality together so I can converse with you on a higher level. So it reduces awkwardness, promotes positive interactions. You want to align with someone so that you can have good memories in Christmas, because I'm sure everyone's had some flare-ups or bad things happen during Christmas. We've already talked about avoiding politics during Christmas. And this is a way to do it. It promotes those positive interactions, builds inclusivity. There should not be family members just because maybe they have a different level of education, different background. They need to be included. You should be able to talk to anyone. I tell leaders that. It doesn't matter who works around you. You should be able to converse with anyone. And then it creates holiday harmony. And this is where you're supposed to start singing a Christmas song, Kristin.
Yeah. I don't have one top of mind. I was sitting here. Here's where I get distracted. You said flare up. And I immediately am thinking of like a medical issue,
like
right?
Hemorrhoids.
Like
Right,
hemorrhoids or a flare up of whatever. Because you have all these commercials for prescriptions always playing on our TV. But anyways, so I got distracted, Ron. But no, it's an amazing, the conversation matching, I really feel like was the star of the conference that we just had in Charleston for those who don't recall. But that really resonated with a lot of people. So I think it's great that we are spinning it for the holidays because, man, family. Did you see? I don't know if you saw this. I posted something. Do you play Monopoly ever, Ron?
I mean, yes, I try to avoid it, but
I love Monopoly.
Remember, you're talking to an air fryer personality and you're asking me if I play Monopoly. Go ahead.
Right. So that is like my favorite game. And I've had, even when I was like young, my neighbors and we would have like multi-day Monopoly marathons where we would write down how much money we had and we would, start from there the next day. And there was this great video of this kid. I don't know why he was shirtless, but a chunky little kid shirtless at the table there in England. And he is flipping off some family member because they were laughing at him for ending up in jail again, right? I mean, it's just hilarious. And I looked it up and I was like, oh, Monopoly's been around since 1903. I'm like ruining families since 1903 because so many people have told me about how they've gotten in fights over the game Monopoly. So if that's like one stupid little thing that folks family as they're gathered to celebrate holidays, they can have turmoil come up from. Just imagine if you have some family drama underlying. So I think this is really important to be able to prepare someone, equip folks listening for
Kristin,
what's to come.
our producer, Stephen, aka my son-in-law, he is into board games and stuff. So he and another friend go to like a board game convention.
Oh, wow.
And
That is next level.
it's like a weekend. Yeah. And I always go, how's the nerd convention? How did you guys do? So I need to work on my conversation matching.
When you look at him, he does not look like a board game enthusiast. He has a coolness
he's got that
about
cool
him.
beard. He is cool.
Yeah, he does have a
really
good beard.
is cool.
Yeah.
But I can't help myself. So
well, yeah, a board game convention. That is. Oh goodness, that's fantastic. Is Monopoly in the mix for him?
Well, I think they have traditional games, and then they introduce. I'm sure it's sponsored, so they introduce new games. But don't hold me to that. Steven is going to be editing this, going, "What is he talking about?"
He's like, "Yeah, not even close." Well, this was really interesting. We talk about a practical way to practice conversation matching is matching the energy level. And I was on this gal's podcast a little over a year ago, and it was funny because, of course, at that point, I generally am somewhat high energy, and she seemed to be high energy as well. And our conversation went really well. And after we had wrapped, I was like, "You are great. I feel like we really meshed." And she goes, "That's because I'm an empath. I match energy." And so she goes, "I quickly picked up on your cadence and then I mirrored it." And I was like, "Oh, no wonder." So for someone, I loved that one that she explained that to me and then didn't just play it off. But two, I really, it was a positive, pleasant experience for me as the guest on her show because she did have that skill set. You ever had someone do that to you?
I've not had that, but I do it. I've been doing it for years. And I know that great leaders do that, even though they may not be able to verbalize it like her.
Right. Yeah.
When I put together, we're going to go through a model that I put together, and great leaders always say this to me, "Oh, I've been doing that. I do that all the time. I just didn't have a mental model or understand what I was doing." We will explain that, but she has to be, we're going to be talking about subtle mirroring, but we're also going to talk about reflective listening. Mm-hmm. And without those skills, it's impossible. So kudos to her for being that attentive. And I'm going to share, Kristin, I told Kristin about, I was involved in a Guinness World Record here last week. So I'm going to talk about that. So you don't want to.
I won't out you. And that gal, she just got engaged the other day, and that personality trait will absolutely serve her in her marriage. So pretty awesome.
Yeah. No kidding. Mm-hmm. No kidding. All right. So I mentioned subtle mirroring. Some people, there's different terms for some of these things, but the key is, and since the world of virtual meetings and things like that, one of the first things I do in executive coaching, Kristin, is I analyze someone's profile while we're talking. Mm. And I mentioned this before. So when you are mirroring, you certainly want to mirror, but if there's something weird going on, it's going to distract you and you're not going to be able to mirror. But anyway, someone signs on, they've got a great smile, they say good morning. You should greet them with a smile and say good morning. If someone comes on and they are obviously going through something, then you don't want to be sitting here all smiles when they're talking about something difficult that they're going through. Now that's kind of the obvious stuff, but there's also, I talk about micro expressions. And you can be talking to someone, and as you develop in body language and face management, you pick up on micro expressions. You have a baseline and you get to know someone, and all of a sudden you realize this person's uncomfortable. Maybe it's a topic that you are engaging in, and maybe you need to change the topic. It depends, but look out for micro expressions as well, because people will give you signals, as I talked about in the conference, and they will let you know how they're feeling. The holiday application is, and I've said this before, I have a cousin, he's a long haul trucker, and he just likes to tell those stories.
Yeah.
And so I can either listen or go out of the room, but I'm not going to be getting an opportunity to tell stories. So,
and I know that kills you, Ron.
I have to pretend. I think there was a dig in there, folks.
Just a little. It's all right. We all like our stories.
So I either listen attentively, and I can then respond by like, "So, how did you repair that tire?" Or I can just tune out and just try to match expressions, or I can leave the room. But I found out that I have matured and seasoned. So now I just try to go ahead and engage. My dad's going to tell me about the fire department. I engage. I listen. I ask questions. And believe it or not, Kristin, it made me feel so much better because sometimes I would be just like, ugh, please not another long haul trucker.
Right.
You were, you chewed out a state trooper. Good for you.
And he wants to tell you because of your law enforcement background.
Because I'm law enforcement. He's like, I told that trooper, why did you do? And I'm like,
and they think they're so hard
you.
too. Yeah.
Good for you. So I'm going with I'm not even going home. What am I talking about? But anyway, if I were, I would be doing subtle mirroring. I would be engaging body language, and I would do conversation matching. And I'm going to give you a really good definition in a few minutes.
All right. No, I like that. And what's interesting? My daughter actually lacks a little bit in that. Like when I lean in to whisper something to her, because I don't want everyone in the room to hear, she doesn't lean in. She just stays. And I wonder, and I'm working with her on that, but I do think it has to do with maybe her brain surgeries or whatnot. But for some people, that just doesn't come natural.
It is so true. And there's some people can't whisper.
Oh, I think my daughter's one of those. She'll be like, I'm trying to whisper. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is happening? But yeah, I have to think about, okay, what could be causing this? And maybe it's just that just doesn't come natural to her. But
Kristin, you got to let me interject.
Yeah, do it.
I went on a date. I was in Washington, D.C. Long story.
I don't know why I'm laughing already. I'm just thinking whispering. Where's this going?
So we went to a movie. And there's a movie going on. Seriously, the girl looks at me and goes, you want some popcorn? I almost jumped out of my seat. I'm like, is she talking to me or somebody else in the theater? Like, that's a pet peeve.
My gosh,
that's a pet peeve. So I was like, do you want some? Yeah, do you like butter? I'm like, what is wrong with this one? I felt like I was on an episode of Seinfeld.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that is a perfect Seinfeld episode.
That did not go well. Let's just say that date did not go well. Do you want me to ask the back row if they want some?
Oh my gosh. That would drive me crazy. Oh, wow. That's a tough wild one. All right. So something else is adapting to the communication style of whomever you're talking to. So, like you've talked about the detailed storytelling. We all know someone like that in our family. Short and direct answers. That can be me. Ron, I'm curious because I have family members that will talk a lot about things that I'll act interested and I try to be interested. And then at some point I just can't fake it anymore. So if I do this and I'll be like, I'm sorry, I'm glazing over. I do say that, but I definitely know my audience before. Like my family, my immediate family, they're still going to love me, even though that's kind of rude. Right. But you do have to be careful with those that you're not super close with. But I am known to just be pretty straightforward when somebody's going on and on, to move it along. But, it could even be humorous banter that's getting a little old, but you have to learn to adjust your responses accordingly. And for the holiday piece of it, for a relative who loves sharing those detailed anecdotes, respond with equal depth. Wow. Tell me more about how that unfolded. What if you have a family member who's really brief? Keep it simple. That's awesome. That sounds like it was fun. Right. Yeah. And I do that also. We talked about gray rocking early on in the podcast, but that is another way. The short, you can even do the short response for someone who needs to be gray rocked. And if you want to know what that is, go find one of our early episodes on gray rocking. But, it's a good response.
Yeah, it was My Boss is a Narcissist is the name of that one.
Is that the one? Okay. Yep. Glad
so,
you
Kristin,
remember.
you brought up something extremely interesting. Why do this? Like, this is a little complex sometimes. And here's what you have to do. And let's just take a step back. Right now, there are people who are going to be driving in to visit family or they have family coming. What you have to decide is this is about promoting harmony and understanding. If you've got someone that you feel like is so rude that you don't want to do this, that's up to you. But what we are talking about is better engagement, a way to improve. Now, in the workplace, this is so strong and so necessary. Yeah. But we are doing the holiday version of this. But you have to decide where the line is. There are some people who just have such a need to be loved. They're insecure that they're going to just mirror anything.
Yeah.
People call themselves a chameleon. And I'm always suspicious when people use that term to me, that I'm a chameleon, because I'm like, okay, is this the real you or the fake you telling me that?
Yeah.
So make a decision now. If you're listening, do I want to go in and be harmonious with people that kind of irk me a little bit? Or do I want to, because you can use the same kind of communication strategies to do what you do, and you exit or you change the subject.
I do it in a playful way, though, and no one generally ever gets irritated with me, at least, to my knowledge.
I was in Texas last week, and Kristin, I want us to do a podcast on that, because it's it's all the different types of communicators, and the passive aggressive is so funny. And I let Kristin and the Northwesterners borrow, bless your heart. You guys get to keep that for a year. But it is so funny. Passive aggressive in the workplace can be negative, but I make it very clear when I'm doing trainings that it can be wonderful. Like if you know someone, my buddy Phil, if he and I were not passive aggressive, I would think something was wrong with our relationship. Like if he wasn't talking about how old, how I look bad, where's my muscle tone, I would think something's wrong with us. And of course, I give it back to him. Yeah. That's how we communicate. We love each other. That's the way it is. But you just said you got to know your audience. You got to know who you're dealing with. But make a decision. Do you want to be harmonious this Christmas season?
I think you should be harmonious, but be authentic at the same time. Yeah. And adjust your vocabulary. And this is huge. You've probably been around somebody that uses really big words that you just don't hear regularly, and they do it and they know that's like their flex. They feel really hot because they're using vocabulary to feel better about themselves. You have to know, we're talking about matching vocabulary, right? And you don't have to do it to a T, but use similar language with those who are around you, similar phrases, expressions as the people or the person that you're speaking to. You want to have that connection with them, and you aren't going to if you're not speaking the same language. And the holiday application of that would be if your grandma uses traditional phrases like "what a blessing," you want to incorporate similar wording into your replies, right? Like it really is such a blessing to be here together. So that's literally, you've heard the term, you're speaking my language. There is something to that, and it's actually quite simple to do.
Yeah, I'm enigmatic to everything you just said, but anyway.
I have to, Justine, I know you're listening. Let me just say this. This was hysterical. So I have to say that it's very tempting when you're in the South, or even when I was in Texas for an extended period of time, to want to pick up the drawl, right? That Southern drawl. And Justine did that when we were in Charleston for 4 days, and it started being picked up a little bit. And so there was one instance where she was on the phone with the concierge, and of course he had a strong Southern accent. And then we're listening to her. Of course, she's hysterical. They were having a conversation about something. And then she starts speaking with a Southern accent, and Lori and I were just on the floor dying. And then she's like, I can't help myself. I just naturally pick up. So she has that strong, like that empath where she's picking up the vocabulary and even the cadence of the person that she's speaking with.
Yeah. And of course, as you know, some people might be insulted by that.
Yeah.
I don't know how anyone could be insulted with Justine, but
I know she's so wonderful. Well, this happened to Dave at the Starbucks drive-thru, and he ordered, I want a coffee with toffee nut and cream. I mean, he's a New Yorker. And the guy, here we are in the Pacific Northwest, and the guy goes, oh yeah, you want a coffee with toffee? And Dave goes, what just happened? And I'm like, oh, he's straight up. I think the guy thinks you're messing around. And so he mimicked, and then the guy realized that that's his real accent. And the guy was like silent after that. I love that though.
When you said use the same vocabulary, if I don't want to hear something, I go, oh, I'm enigmatic to that. And then I just move on, and that way they don't know what you said.
They're like, what that? What does that mean?
Well, it's an enigma. It's like a mystery,
Oh,
You just
that's
throw
great.
stuff off. It doesn't matter what it means. You
Yeah,
just,
it just leaves them thinking and
confuse. Yeah.
pondering. That's amazing.
So let's talk a little bit about how to match. And I promised I would give a little bit of a model here. You have practical conversations. You have social conversations, emotional, and then of course there's intimate. We won't get into that. But the practical conversation is when you're just exchanging information. It might be work related. It might be something about the Christmas tree, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Then social is when you are exchanging pleasantries or talking about hobbies and things like, hey, I hear you love baseball. That's a social conversation. Emotional is when you start adding your feelings. I feel, so warm and loving this Christmas, or the opposite. I feel like you're not listening to me. So that's an emotional conversation. So when we have that mental model and we know that it's one of those 4 categories, it makes it so much easier to communicate, especially people that it doesn't come naturally. I was telling Kristin, I coached someone recently, and in a lot of trainings that I do, I've had people say, well, yeah, I've always done that. And someone, by the way, told me that at the conference.
Oh, nice.
They said, I've always done that. I didn't realize, there's a mental model, and they like that. But most conversations are the practical, social, and emotional. If you stick with that, you understand, oh, this person wants to be more social with me. Like, for example, Kristin, I talk about the personality quadrant, and a lot of analytical people, they want to get to the point, matter of fact.
Right. Yeah.
So you don't want to walk in and go, hey, I had a great time. I went to the zoo this weekend. I took the kids. They don't care.
Right.
They want you to be practical and get to the conversation. Not everyone that's, that's analytical are like that, but you do have to read the room. And I teach so many times about establish a baseline. Like Chris and I have been doing this podcast so long, we already have a baseline.
Right.
We know, what to aggravate each other or the things we have in common. All this stuff, you establish a baseline. But when we started this, we were a little more cautious because we didn't know each other. It was a little more difficult. So when I talk about that mental model, that's what I'm talking about. So you basically, as Kristin already said, you can match topics, you can match vocabulary, or there's some people, and Kristin, this is the book that I want you to write or add this as a chapter in your friendship book, is I didn't even realize it, but we all have multiple personalities, because I can have a friend of mine, Steve, if he calls me, we're going to laugh.
Right.
Even the memes that he sends me, we send each other, are funny.
Yeah.
So then I've got another person that's very goal dreaming. We're going to, I'm going to conquer the world. Then I jump into that mode with this person.
Yeah.
So it's amazing. You've got people that draw that out of you, or you draw that out of them. But I've learned to just flow with it, because I love having a friend that's going to make me laugh, or one that's a total idiot, or one that's, very driven.
Yes.
I slipped that idiot in there, Kristin, but
oh my gosh. Well, I know it's not me, so I'm
it's not you, but it's just so impactful if you can match the things that we're talking about. This could be, and I know I might have said this 1 or 2 other times, this could be the most important episode that we've ever done. If you're seeking to get promoted in your workplace, you're seeking to influence in sales, you're seeking to have an impact, because Kristin, if you use this in sales, you and I have said this before, so I don't like to be too redundant, but somebody's got a little kid and you're trying to sell something and you don't even notice their kid.
Yeah, that's bad.
That's a problem. That all applies when you're doing conversation matching.
Yes, 100%. You're bringing me back to when I was a banker. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm a badass salesperson. I just have to tell you that. But it's like genuine. You genuinely have to connect and you find a common ground. But, something else is, I find matching eye contact very important. And, how to match, because there can be like a creepy, I know you go into this, there can be like where eye contact becomes creepy. Do you have like a second rule? Like how many seconds? Isn't like a 3-second gaze or something like that?
Well, the experts say until you can gauge their eye color.
Oh, eye color. Yes.
Over and over. But there are some people that say 5 seconds. And Kristin, I'm going to let you take back. But what I talked about, you have the you've got gazes, they call them. So you got the power gaze. And again, you got social gaze, you got intimate gaze, and thinking gaze.
Yes.
Have you ever noticed if you ask somebody a date, they're going to look away and go, I think it was 1980.
Yeah.
Because they're thinking. And if
I
you
look
learn
up and to the left when I'm thinking. And isn't that like a sign of somebody lying?
No, it's
Or is
down.
it down?
It used to be. It's been disproven.
Okay, I'm
It used
like,
to be
I look
down.
up and I'm not lying.
It used to be down to the left. No, I
Okay.
didn't want to hijack that, but this is all part of our training programs. But if you put all this together, you can really be pretty masterful
Absolutely.
at being powerful in your space and being able to influence. So
Yes. And you
anyway.
know what? Real quick, this is just about body language, but in our Christmas card pictures, I had my son put his hands in his pockets, which naturally he does that. But then I was like, thumbs out. Right.
Yeah.
And that's part of the training that you talked about. And the thumbs out gives you like an element of being in charge.
It does. And even hands above the waist makes you, that's a power zone. But also I teach the royal, we're getting deep here, but I teach the royal stance. If you look in Britain and in some major generals, they will stand with their hands behind their back. And that is not perceived as weakness. It's perceived that my authority is so great with my hands behind my back, you cannot touch me. You will not touch me.
Right.
So it's called the royal stance.
Right.
And I do a lot of fun things in training. I have people do the different stances.
I love it.
No one knew this, but I took a picture with my little grandson, Nathan, and we're in the royal stance. Of course, only people that's been in my training would know what we were doing, but that's what we were doing.
Oh, nice. Yeah. That stuff is important. And I had people comment like, Gavin looks like such a young man. I'm like, yes, he does. But I also think it has something to do with the fact that he has hands in his pockets, thumbs out. And I had people comment on that. So it goes a long way, even with the 10-year-old. And, if back to eye contact, if you match the frequency and intensity of somebody's eye contact, that will create this sense of trust without making them uncomfortable, of course. And the holiday application. Oh, yeah. What were you going to say?
No, I was going to tell you that police officers are good at this, but and I may be biased, but I think probation officers are the masters at eye contact because we spend hours. Like I would do a pre-sentence interview. I might interview someone for 2.5, 3 hours in a jail cell because it's so detailed. And you had to know when, because you would have certain people try to intimidate you, or you would have someone that, was obviously uncomfortable and you got to pull them back to the conversation.
Right.
And you had to really understand. It took the power gaze and then looking away to get someone, if they think they're going to try to intimidate you, you let them know that's not going to happen. And so I do think probation officers are really good at the gazes that I mentioned, the body language.
You have to be, right?
Reflective listening. You got to get so many details. If you write a federal pre-sentence investigation, it is so detailed. And you want to talk about embarrassed. If you get in federal court and you've got a detail wrong, very embarrassing. So,
oh yeah, my husband tells me about that even with like the police reports, and then they have to go to court for someone they arrested, and it has to be exact, otherwise the defense.
And this is
will
no strike
tear it
because
apart.
it's been years since I did one, but we used to have to try to find police officers used to write some of the worst. They could not write. And we would be trying to figure out, what is this person saying? Like, and I know it's improved. So that was many, many years ago.
Yeah.
But that doesn't float, in federal court. And so Kristin, let's move into, you already mentioned cadence. And I show in my trainings it's an interview with O.J. Simpson. And basically what he does is his cadence is off when he's lying. He goes, I did not kill Nicole Brown Simpson. And I think you have talked about this, but that is one of the ways that people, you can tell if they're lying, is their cadence is off. But if you want to connect with someone, you match their cadence. If you've got someone that's moving pretty quickly, swiftly through a story, then you don't want to, if you're asking a question, you want to go, and then what did you do next? When they're moving along. And interruptions sometimes are terrible. And, that's noise that we go into when decoding messages. But your speech, your rhythm, and, that person, I think you're right. When Dave went through the drive-through, I think that person might have thought he was kidding.
Yeah, I think
and,
so.
And I got to be honest with you, anytime someone says coffee, I cannot resist. I have to go, yeah, let's get some coffee. And I did a post on coffee today. I don't know if
I
you saw
saw
that.
that. Yes, I love it.
It's how powerful it is to have coffee with
It
someone.
is.
But if you can match the rhythm of someone's speech and even, the pauses and things like that, it really does it gives the impression this person is really interested in me. This person's really listening to me. And I'm not talking about being fake. I'm talking about just adapting and building a stronger bond. During those family discussions, just kind of, and by the way, it's a great time to practice this. If you're listening, Christmas time with family is a great way to practice. Work on your skills a little bit. Work on your eye contact, your cadence, your mirror, your subtle mirroring, your listening skills. It's a great time to practice and watch what you can do if you really apply these principles we're talking about.
Yeah, it can be powerful for sure.
Yeah.
Something else to really be aware of is observing the atmosphere that you're in before you're jumping in. And, a way to decode that is pay attention to the tone of the gathering. And are people cheerful? You touched on this earlier. Is someone stressed or reserved, or is the energy high and it's cheerful? You want to notice that energy in the room before starting conversations. You'll find me a lot of times, I'll find one interesting person and I'll sit and have a deep conversation with them off to the side of the room. That's actually what I enjoy most, because I don't enjoy surface conversation. I can do it. I'm a pro at it, but that's not where I feel like I grow or am stretched as an individual. I like those deep, meaningful conversations. But to be able to even get to that point, you have to pay attention to the atmosphere. And during the holidays, during a family dinner or party, let others talk first, observe their mood. And this is going to help you engage with the empathy and really understand how you should appropriately respond.
Kristin, you're going to love this one. There are hijackers in every conversation.
Yes.
And they hijack the conversation. And I just watched this happen. Someone was telling me about a situation, something that a family member did. This other person jumps in and goes, yeah, my sister did this and does, and like completely hijacked. I couldn't help it. I said, hey, let them finish.
Yeah.
And I sometimes I'm outspoken, and things like that really bother me when people hijack the conversation. Yeah. And I don't like it to be done to me. I don't like to see people doing it. So, hey, you hijackers out there, take a break. Let people finish the story.
A hijacker, a one-upper, right? It's like you just stop, just listen. And
I'm getting more ideas for our T-shirts.
Oh
the
my
hijacker,
gosh,
the
right?
one-upper.
I like it. Yeah. That you have to, it's kind of an inside thing. You have to know what we're talking about.
Yeah. So, Kristin, we will start our descent. I've been on a lot of planes lately.
I know. Sounds like
Can you tell?
Yeah. I know you just got back from Texas, right?
I did.
Wow.
So had a great time, by the way. Just I've trained the same people. It's the first time ever, 3 different 8-hour sessions, plus coached the managers.
That's a lot. Yeah.
My opening line when I got back was like, I cannot believe you guys want to listen to me again. But you do have to dig deep if you're training that much to bring new stuff and fresh ideas.
Oh, yeah.
So, I think we've covered a whole lot of things here. And one suggestion I would have is like, get those annoying family members to listen to this episode before you ever arrive. Just send it out.
Yeah.
And say, you need to listen to this.
Right.
Kristin and I have talked about the atmosphere. We've talked about nonverbal cues. We've done a couple of episodes on body language. We've talked about your listening skills, how to thread a conversation, those open-ended, get them talking if that's what you desire. And you can also validate them if they need it. You also validate them in a way by just, like, you might repeat the last 3 words they say, or you nod the head. Dr. Marissa that we work with, she talks about if you nod 3 times, you're giving someone permission to continue that conversation. And I want to move into decoding, and I think this will resonate with a lot of people. But what happens is there is a signal that enters our brain, and then we are decoding in our brain as we're delivering a message. The neurons are decoding. So I'm speaking right now. Then your brain, Kristin, is going to grab that message and decode it and put it into an understanding for you. And then you are going to go through the same process and send a message back to me if we're in conversation. The problem, and by the way, I've got the science on this. We're not going to go that deep about how the neurons work in the, I've mentioned
that
the
would be
amygdala
interesting for a
the
future
prefrontal
topic,
cortex. Though. Yes, we'll have to do that. But so here's where I struggle. It's where most people struggle, and it's noise. Noise is anything that would affect the decoding process so that you do not respond, you do not mirror, you do not use the right vocabulary in the proper manner. So the decoding process gets interrupted by noise. And you might ask, what is noise? We're not talking about drones flying over.
Or that semi-truck that was running in my neighborhood from 2:30 to 4:30 a.m.
Exactly. I just wanted to throw that in because if you're listening to this 50 years from now, we're being invaded by drones right now as we record.
The East Coast, yeah.
Anyway, let's talk a little bit about noise. And Kristin, you can chime in here. Noise sometimes is our emotion. Have you ever just been in a bad mood and, you're frustrated, you're tired, you don't want to, you just don't want to decode, or you don't want to really listen, and therefore the message is confused. And this Keen and Peele, I think it is, I just watched where they're texting. One of them thinks the person is being so kind. They're like, oh, the other person thinks they're going to get in a fight.
Oh, that's funny.
And it's hilarious to watch it.
Yeah. The interpretation can be so different.
Then you got a fixed mindset. Like there's certain things I don't like. It doesn't matter what you say. I don't like this, and I'm not going to budge. I told my mother, I do this jokingly, but my mother, of course, is getting up in years and she has arthritis and things like that. And I said, Mom, I found the answer. We're going to get you an ice bath. And she's just like, oh there is no way I'm going to. So anyway,
wait, are you serious?
Well, no, because I know she's not going to get in an ice bath, right? I'm doing it to tease her. I think it would help, yes, but there's no way my mother's getting in an ice bath. Yeah. So finally, the other day I started, and she's going on and on. I said, Mom, let's quit talking about something that's never going to happen.
Yeah.
Then you've got biases, and we have, because of DEI and the things that we've talked about, now when you hear bias, you always think you're talking about a race. Yes. But we have tons of biases in our life that we don't even realize sometimes. There are things to this day, Kristin, that kind of set me off, and I had to realize that it's because of something happened in my childhood or something happened not that long ago. And we need to re-explore biases is what I'm saying, because
I have a bias to overly hairy armpits, male armpits.
Too hairy?
Overly hairy. Here's what happened, Ron. My two cousins, Tony and Perry, they were going through puberty when they were like 13, and they had hairy armpits, and they stuck them in my face, and I was like 6 or something. And to this day, because I guess I didn't like armpits at that point, because I must have verbalized that, and then they thought they would both terrorize me with their armpits. But to this day, I hate armpits. And I think it's because they traumatized me.
Well, and
there's that for you. There's a bias.
I'm going to go check my armpits now. I'm getting concerned. But, the Mandela effect is something like that. You project on something else. I also teach psychological scars, the way you can, trauma transfer, where you transfer those psychological scars onto the next person. But we have to be aware of these things. That's really a great point. You may be having a conversation.
Or when people get deodorant balls stuck in their armpit hair. And then you can see it.
You really got some issues with armpits there.
I really do, Ron. I really do. I wanted to be annoying and add that last part in, just as not reading my room. Just like what not to do. But it can be humorous. But it can also annoy people.
Folks, I'm doing it right now. I'm mirroring being ridiculous right now. Upbringing, of course. There's things, the old story where the lady's cutting part of the turkey off, and finally the her daughter goes, "Why do you do that?" And she goes, "Well, I don't really know. Let me ask my mom." The mom goes, "I don't know why we do that." And then they ask the grandmother, and she goes, "Because I didn't have a kettle big enough."
Oh, that's funny. It all goes back.
Yeah. It goes back to necessity.
Ron, how do you do a PB&J? If you're going to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, how do you do it? Walk me through it.
Kristin, I use bread.
Okay, that's good. That's a good start.
I do not like crunchy peanut butter, so it's got to be smooth.
Me neither.
I try to use almond butter, by the way, just because of ingredients. That's another thing, but I use almond butter in my shake. But anyway, I put the peanut butter on first.
Okay.
Then I spread the jelly on top of the peanut butter.
What the F, Ron? That's how my husband does it. And it's the weirdest thing in the world.
Yeah. And I'm sure he's like me. We hate being right all the time.
What? Then, I don't understand. Okay.
Listen, you're hijacking. Let me finish.
Keep going. I'm just flabbergasted right now.
Then you cut it in half. And there you go.
Okay. And then the other side of bread. Yeah. I don't know. I can't even get to that point because I'm so disgusted by putting jelly on top of peanut butter when you have a completely blank piece of bread there that's dry and abandoned.
Yeah. See, what you don't understand is the peanut butter absorbs part of the jelly and it provides this unique mixture that it's pretty scientific. Did your mom do this? I really wouldn't be able to explain it to you.
Did your mom make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches this way?
I have no idea. This is original. PB&J is an original.
Oh my gosh, Ron. So the only reason my husband does it, that's how his mom does it. And she told me the only reason she does it, because believe me, I've analyzed this, is because that's how her mom and dad did it. So, and I grew up where you put jelly on one side, peanut butter on the other, you slap them together, right? That makes a lot more sense to me. But I think if you ask your mom, it's probably how she does it, the way you do it. And
if you think of this, you've already got one piece of bread laying right there. Why
call your mom right now?
Piece of bread. Yeah, I want to. I'm going to finish this up because we got to rock and roll. It's almost
getting goofy
Christmas.
Over here, Ron.
You remember when I talked about
eggnog, but
remember when I talked about hijacking? That's how you do it, folks, right there.
I know. This is just like a masterclass in hijacking from yours truly.
Please, if someone will on our Facebook group or DM us about how you make a peanut butter and jelly, Kristin will send you a T-shirt.
Yes, seriously, I want to know.
So if you've listened this
what other
far,
freaks are out there that are putting it on top of each other.
Okay, so the last three is habits. We get in these habits and we just do things we don't know why, like weird people that put the jelly on one side and the
oh my God,
peanut butter. Get Dave. Go in there and get him.
He's at work. He's working overtime.
He needs to make an appearance.
Oh my gosh, I know.
Poor focus, of course. There's those days you just are not focused. You're not listening.
Yeah, hey.
Then there's insecurities. There's people who you give them a compliment and they can't handle it. And they just look down and like. Anyway, that's all noise. That's not all the noise. But if you can begin to silence. Now, I told you guys that I was involved in a Guinness Book of World. I don't want to brag, but I was involved in a Guinness Book of World Record last week. And what happened was, I'm sure you folks have played the telephone game.
Oh, yeah.
You start off with a sentence, you whisper it to the next person, it goes down a line. And by the time it gets to the other end, it is complete confusion. It never matches. So what I did is through teaching all of this stuff, I challenged a group that we are going to beat the telephone game using reflective listening and decoding and all of these things. And I did not make it easy. We started with a pretty complex message. And when it got to the end, it was exactly the same as what we started. So although Guinness's Book of World Records wasn't there, and you probably won't see this, I'm sure we set a Guinness Book of World Record because we beat the telephone game, and it's because we applied what we're sharing with you today.
Yeah, and you set the expectation, which is so huge.
And Kristin, there's one other deeper lesson. Sometimes people are not challenged to win, and that's a whole other subject. Our kids need to be challenged to win.
Right.
We need to challenge ourselves to win, and we can rise to a higher level in most cases.
Right, absolutely.
It's been a lot.
I have to say, so I don't know if in karate, if you used nunchucks? as
I'm
part of the
glad that
training?
you say karate because,
Yeah.
they
Proper
were
way to
made
say
fun
it.
of a little bit, but I did it because I love Bruce Lee and I got really pretty good at it. And you're not going to believe this, but I've got some hanging. All I need to do, I'm getting my buddy Phil to cut the chain and I'm going to start working them again. I'm going to send you a video,
Oh,
Kristin, of me working the nunchucks.
yeah. So the reason I bring it up is my son thinks they're kind of dorky. And last night they were doing a whole at Taekwondo, they were doing a whole nunchuck night. And he wasn't that great at it. It didn't come natural to him. And I said to him on the way home, I'm like, I think we need to work on that a little bit. He's like, but I have no interest in being an expert at nunchucks. And I was like, I totally get that. But if you're going to do something, you want to be the best you can be at it, no matter what you're doing. And if that's an element of what you're being trained on, you need to get good at it. So he's like, okay, yeah, okay. So then as soon as we got home, I'm like, all right, let's work on this. Right. So even though we both think it's a little goofy, it's something where I set the expectation. If you're going to be doing it, you might as well do it well.
Kristin, they were spokes in a wagon wheel. That's what the tonfa that I use, they were spokes in a wagon wheel. And that's what I did in competition. But I was actually looking on my Instagram. There is a video of me doing the tonfa, but I will tell you that I was working out and your hands can't be sweaty or they don't flow as much, but it's a P224 that police used to use. You would hang on, had a handle on one end and it was it really was a spoke in a wagon wheel.
Oh, wow.
I don't even know what we were talking about, but nunchucks. Anyway.
Kids being pushed to excellence.
Oh, that's right. Being pushed. Yes. You tell him to be good at nunchucks if he's going to use them.
Do that.
I did hit myself in the head before, but we're not going to talk about that.
Oh my gosh. I watched so many kids whack themselves in the face yesterday.
Kristin, I'm sending this to you, but don't judge me simply because my hands were a little dry, but I'm sending this to you.
All right. Sounds good. I can't open it while we're live though, because I'm all wired in. I'm in airplane mode.
I know nothing I've sent you went through. I just saw that.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Kristin,
we continued.
There's more to this, but I think we've brightened Christmas.
Yes, I think so. I feel good. I don't know.
I can hear the bells ringing.
It's time. It's been fun. I love that we were able to dive into this and cover something that can be applied in everyone's family, in everyone's living rooms, and wherever they're going.
Absolutely. And Kristin, if you could make me a shirt that says Guinness Book of World Record breaker, that'd be great.
I can do that. Yeah, I like it. Hey, you know what? You should look into that. If anyone has film of you guys doing that, there might actually be some legitimacy behind
There
it.
could be, because or just make me a T-shirt that says one upper.
Okay, we'll
either
stick with
way.
the T-shirt. One upper. Love it. Oh,
hey, everybody. We certainly hope you have a very Merry Christmas. We're so grateful that you come on this journey with us. If you've listened this far, especially. And and by the way, Kristin, what are we going to do for people in the new year?
Oh,
I put it at the very end.
I'm glad I know now, because I did not. Yeah, Ron, I don't know.
It's right before the images. We're just having fun now, folks.
Oh, let's see. What? Wish them okay, let's cut that part. That's really bad, because I have no idea.
No, we're leaving this.
No, I have no idea.
Tune in next week. We're going to help you go into 2025 with purpose.
Oh my gosh.
No, and we really are.
Bad. No,
Kristin,
we have to
trust me, no one's listening at this point. Don't worry about
it. Better be. Oh my gosh.
All right, everybody.
Set up. Oh, you're really keeping this.
Oh,
okay,
we're keeping
wow.
it.
All right, you get to watch the sausage. No one wants to see sausage and laws be made, but there you go.
Kristin. They do. You're so, pitch perfect that they need to see behind the scenes.
Oh, goodness.
All right, everybody. Be the leader you're meant to be.
We'll see you next week.
The Dirty Side of Leadership podcast is brought to you by Forward Operations. If you'd like to book Ron or Kristin for speaking events, training, or executive coaching, visit forwardoperations.com. Be the leader you're meant to be.